Mhm.
I was looking at Twitter the other day. I think it was a bug bounty hunter, and it just said like, he's trying to hack something. He's like, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. I'm a genius. I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. Because it's that one thing. You
Mhm.
fail 100 times and you get it right once.
Yeah.
And that's to say, I've spent hours on a payload. I've spent hours trying to execute, cross-site scripting, because the WAF's filtering it, and it's very tricky. But after 5 hours, I can execute a cross-site scripting payload. And when you look back and you say that took me 5 hours, that was crazy. Why did that take me so long? But you feel so good when you get it. I mean, that's why I do this. I think that's why a lot of people do pen testing, or like cybersecurity, is because they kind of have that passion for the job.
Hello and welcome back to the Cybrary podcast, everybody. Today we are doing another instructor spotlight. Today, talking to Clint Kehr. How are you doing today, Clint?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well. Thanks for coming on and speaking with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, to get started, kind of jumping in, how long have you been in the cybersecurity industry?
It's a good question, and not one that's easily answered, because I was actually in law enforcement prior to being in cybersecurity full time. I started my career as a police officer, a city police officer, and then became a federal agent. And then while I was a federal agent, I started to get involved in liking cyber investigations, which, of course, being in law enforcement nowadays, you can't hide from the fact that criminals are using things like Facebook and Instagram and other online platforms. And I had to get really smart at that. And I liked it so much that I joined what was once the cyber intel branch in the government agency I worked for. And about 2 weeks into that, I was asked to start doing dark web cases.
Wow.
And a lot of fun, things I can't really talk about. But doing that, I had to get more technical, especially because, the dark web deals with things like the Tor browser. It deals with encrypted communication. It deals with encrypted email, and things that, if you're in forensics, there's kind of a difference between being operational, like I was doing, and being in forensics, and kind of trying to merge the two of those worlds together. And all the while I'm studying this kind of stuff, I start taking an interest in more of the offensive security side of things, more of the hacking side of things. And I think you'll see some agents, write books about being in a biker gang and things like that. And I really liked, I enjoyed my time on the dark web and being on the dark web, and really enjoyed the hacking part of that. So much so that, started taking these certification exams. So I took the CEH as an agent, which, was a good kind of beginning into cybersecurity. And then I heard about the OSCP, and I thought, like, I have CEH, I could go take OSCP, which is a very hands-on test, and realized very quickly that I was completely out of my element. So while I was doing this, I started to get more education and certifications. My goal was to attack things in two ways to get into cybersecurity. It was to not only get a classical education, get a master's degree, get graduate certificates, but also to get a lot of certifications. Because I think a lot of people that want to get into this industry might have the issue where they say, you don't have the experience to get in. Well, what angles can you take if you're brand new to cybersecurity?
Mm-hmm.
And my thought was, well, hey, people are going to say you've been a cop. You're just a cop. So my goal was to get the education, make the connections, and also get the certifications. So while I was doing this, I was going to graduate school at Carnegie Mellon University, and took a course on offensive penetration testing. And in that, really enjoyed the aspects of that. It was interesting because I took two courses, one after the other.
Yeah.
One was network defenses, which taught me the blue team defender side, and one was the penetration testing side. And I really gravitated towards the pen testing side, because to me it was like this big puzzle. Like, basically the professors kind of mimicked it off OSCP, where they're like, here's an environment, hack it. And you literally had to hack it to pass the course. So I loved it, and tried it for OSCP, failed it. And then basically, started to take all these labs and decided to leave the government and leave law enforcement and become more involved in cybersecurity. I went from doing dark web stuff for the government to doing dark web stuff for a private company, but still really wanted to get into offensive security, and then pivoted to the company I'm at now, doing more of the offensive security side of things. So in pen testing, we talk about lateral movement. This was kind of doing that, was doing reconnaissance, finding what I liked, and then kind of going for the career path that I wanted, not directly, but kind of making these like incremental leaps into what I wanted to do.
Yeah, just talking about your history, going back, you said, starting as a police officer and then going, becoming a federal agent and then going and starting in the dark web, like, to a layman person, working in the dark web sounds like you're already way into, you've been doing cybersecurity for years. And, to hear that that's kind of how you got your start and that's what started piquing your interest in these other things is really interesting. Was it just kind of, I guess, you can't really talk about, but what you were working on and you just kind of noticed like this is where things were going, or just kind of piqued your interest and you just wanted to know how to do some of the things that, maybe your other colleagues were doing that you just didn't know how to do yet?
So, it was a relatively new space. Silk Road had happened and was taken down, but this was kind of the time after Silk Road where there were other marketplaces that popped up like Nucleus and Agora, which, if you don't know a lot about the dark web, those names don't mean much. But if you've been around for a while, those were kind of the marketplaces that took hold after Silk Road. And for the agency that I was working for at the time, this was all brand new stuff. And there was really no one I could turn to. As law enforcement, we were all trying to work together, figuring out how to, what Bitcoin and PGP and encryption and public keys and private keys and wallets and things like that. This was all kind of new to us. So, unlike I think the industry now, especially in the offensive side where there's so many resources, there weren't really that many resources. And then I was asked to teach about this stuff in a pretty short period of time. And here I am brand new to this world, trying to teach other people how to do it. And I was very fortunate getting kind of my feet held to the fire by getting onto the dark web so quickly and trying to learn as much as I could. Is I went over to Europol and tried to teach them about the dark web and, using virtual machines and setting them up. And I think the greatest compliment in trying to teach them all about this and technology was they started to form their own units. And, they came back and said, thanks for all this great training. Now I'm in charge of the unit in my country on dark web. And we're arresting people. And it was a great compliment, and I was just, I was brand new to all this and trying to learn as much as I could. So there was definitely a huge learning curve for me. And going into this, I thought I was technically savvy, but I think you'll hear a lot of people who have been in the industry and wise to this. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So I might have thought like back then I knew some really good stuff, but really I wasn't even scratching the surface. And still I'm not even scratching the surface. I know way more than I did then. But, you have to kind of be brave enough, I think, in this industry to fail. I talk about this in my course, that if you're not someone that's used to failing or not good at failing, this might not be the industry, or, offensive security might not be the thing for you. I was looking at Twitter the other day. I think it was a bug bounty hunter. And, it just said like, he's trying to hack something. He's like, I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I'm a genius. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. Because, it's that one thing, you fail 100 times and you get it right once.
Yeah.
And that's to say I've spent hours on a payload. I've spent hours trying to execute, cross-site scripting because, the WAF's filtering it and it's very tricky. But, after 5 hours, I can, execute cross-site scripting payload. And when you look back and you say that took me 5 hours, that was crazy. Why did that take me so long? But you feel so good when you get it. That's why I do this. I think that's why a lot of people do pen testing or like cybersecurity, is because they kind of have that passion for the job.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting coming in and thinking like, oh, I know some stuff. And then, like you said, I mean, the more you learn, the more you realize like, I don't know. There's so much more that I don't know than I know. I might be an expert in this one tiny little area and maybe not an expert in that, but that one area deals with all of this other stuff that I couldn't speak on if I tried. There's so much out there in the industry. I mean, there's so many different little pockets and teams and things here and there that it's just giant. There's a lot going on. And you talked about kind of when you started that first course. I can't remember what you said it was, and you jumped in. You're like, oh, I think I'm going to do okay. And then you have all these labs, and then you realize you're immediately out of your element. How did you kind of get past that? Was that something that you were ready for, or you just kind of had to deal with as it came up?
Yeah, I was talking about OSCP, and I just passed the CEH, which is at the time was a multiple choice test. Mm-hmm. Now I think they have a practical side of it as well. But even just connecting to the lab environment, I mean, they use OpenVPN. You connect to their virtual environment, and then you ping a host. To me, that was like, wow, this is this is tough. And that's when I started to realize, like, hey, I need to get savvy. I need to get a lot smarter at this. Like being a hacker is not like the movies, and it's not that nice graphical user interface, and you're going through the Gibson. This is all like administrator stuff, like system admin, network admin. That is very helpful, and even people that have worked the help desk can have had to step up over me. Mm-hmm. Because they're used to configuring things, and ultimately as a pen tester, you're thinking like a network administrator instead of protecting things or configuring things to help. You're trying to take down firewalls or disable firewalls or do things maliciously or check things so that you can see if an exploit works. Yeah. So having that background, even just starting as a help desk technician, it is definitely a leg up over people like me who came strictly from a completely different industry. And really, it wasn't until I went to Carnegie Mellon and took this course that I had the confidence to try this again. And really, I credit my professors with their ability to kind of give you enough to pass that test, that online lab environment. Mm-hmm. But not give you everything. And like I said, there was that network defense course that I took, which was kind of, formulaic. It was like, here's the lab guide, follow step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas the offensive security side was, figure it out. And I think I talked about like that joy I felt, like the joy I felt when I finally got a shell, when I got the first shell in a box, was like, I got so excited. I like jumped up and yelled. My wife came in. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm great." Like I just got a shell, and she's looking at the screen at the command prompt, and she's like, "What's so exciting?"
Yeah, looks like the Matrix. I don't know, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it was that moment, I think, when I really knew like this is what I want to make my career into. Mm-hmm. And although I failed OSCP after that, it really drove me forward. Like my failure drove me. I've heard like the saying fail forward, but really like it helped me fail forward. Like I joined Hack the Box and I started to take labs and I started to get more involved in the community. Yeah. And started to make friends and connections. And that's when I think I gained enough confidence at that point to take it again and eventually passed the OSCP, which again was a great feeling. But that's when I felt like, hey, I can call myself a hacker. But then actually getting a job being a hacker taught me that I didn't really know that much.
Yeah, and I think that's a good lesson is like understanding, you failed OSCP the first time, and then that just gave you more motivation to go out, learn, meet people, get advice, what you should do, and then go back and take it again. Do you have advice for people trying to get into the industry now, whether it's in kind of an offensive space like you or, something different?
I mean, people probably have heard this a lot, but, connections, LinkedIn. Working for the government, I was very shy of LinkedIn, and I was a reservist, and kind of the work that I did especially being on the dark web, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't want my name out there.
Yeah, it's not something you usually shout from the rooftops like, guess what I do all day,
Right, right. So, I mean, it's interesting because now I try to help service members and people who want to transition into this world. And my first question is, do you have a LinkedIn account? Because, that's kind of, I think, the feeding ground for making these connections and where you meet a lot of people. But that's not to say that's the be all end all. I mean, there's plenty of other, like Hack the Box has forums, Offensive Security has forums, even LinkedIn groups. If you pass a GIAC exam, they have this community, and don't be shy about reaching out to people. And that's not to say everyone I reached out to got back to me. There were people that like, sure, I'll help you, and then I never heard from them again. But it's the ability to kind of find a mentor, and I don't know if latch on is the right term, but have them guide you on things, but not get different perspectives, because like you said, there's so many different career paths. I mean, how do you tell someone just starting out, what they're going to like? And being in it, you see there's so many different things. There's red team, there's purple team, there's blue team, there's cyber threat intelligence. There's more of the risk, the risk management, the control side of it, the policy, there's so many different avenues that people can take. And how do you really know what you like? And for me, I think I go back to that moment where I got the shell, and I'm like, I definitely want to be a pen tester, a hacker. Red team is what excites me. So I don't know if everyone has that moment that I had, but I think definitely going to school and studying all these different kind of job or career paths definitely helped me figure out what I liked and what I didn't like as much.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely helps. I've said it on this podcast multiple times, so sorry, listeners, but like the industry is so big. Like, technically, you and me work in cybersecurity, and our jobs couldn't be any different. I guarantee I could not do your job, and you could probably do mine pretty good. So it's, there is something out there for everyone. Like, what you're interested in or something that makes you a little different might make you better suited for one type of role than another. Like you're talking about attacking and stuff. If that's what you're interested in, then yeah, you want to be on the offensive side. You want to be attacking instead of defending. But you might just like to, be the person who admins everything, or actually set it up, or be on the defensive side. I mean, there's so many different avenues and everything that you're able to take. So switching gears a little bit to your current role, what is your current role? What's your kind of day-to-day look like, if you can talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say who I work for. I work in the financial services industry, and work. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn, but definitely on the offensive side. Yeah, definitely on the offensive side. I mean, I do work for Cybrary part time, so more on the offensive side. I've created the offensive pen testing course. So that's definitely where my skill set has gone to, and the area that I enjoy doing, and definitely have seen all this. I don't want to say all the sides of cybersecurity, but where I work now definitely has all those different components that we talked about. Red team, purple team, blue team, cyber threat intel. Whatever you can think of with cybersecurity, it's there, and I think that it's great that companies that do this, just hypothetically speaking, have programs where people can, especially people right out of grad school or undergrad, can kind of move around to different functions within cybersecurity. So, if there's the possibility that somebody can go and join a company and kind of move through the different areas of cybersecurity, and I think it's great for companies that do that. To see what people like and where their skill sets are. Because again, I think it's really hard when you just start out in this industry to know what you like. Because it'd be hard to pick out like, oh, that's what I want to do, without really having all the knowledge and everything that goes along with it, or what that role might entail. Yeah, I mean, I did cyber threat intel for under a year, and I can tell you, doing that, I mean, it was fine, and it was kind of a world that I had been in previously,
Hmm.
but it wasn't what brought me joy in life. It wasn't
Yeah.
something that I was like every day I woke up and I'm like, yeah, I want to do cyber threat intel for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it was good to have that experience.
Okay. Well, talking about what you do want to do for the rest of your life, what is a typical day like for you? What are you spending your time on, or what, things kind of pop up that you have to deal with?
Um, I mean, for me, being involved in the community, there's a lot of there's a lot of different groups I'm part of. I'm part of Hacking is Not a Crime, so I am involved in kind of more of the outreach. I do, I'm going to be speaking at B-Sides Nova, so plug for that. Kind of doing an offensive security talk. Um, I really think in giving back to the community. Obviously that's why I wanted to create the course here, is because I like teaching, but I also want to give back.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the push in what I do, day to day, is if I see something interesting, is teaching that. Obviously I don't teach it outside my company, but is teaching it to other people, and it's not just the red team that I want involved. It's the blue team. It's the people that fix things, because really in general, if we're talking about the offensive side, red teaming, pen test, we're a small function in the larger process. So
Hmm.
our goal is to make the organization safer. It's great to break things. It's a lot of fun, but you're not doing your job if you can't recommend and help an organization fix its vulnerabilities. So being able to break things, being really good at breaking things, is not going to make you a great pen tester. There is that customer focus, and that not only goes for, I think, consulting, because if you're a consultant, yes, you're definitely customer focused. But if you work for an organization on a pen test team, you need to be able to speak to people as well. And that's where I think, in cybersecurity, the soft skills and the hard skills, or technical skills, if you even want to call it that, come into play. Because, I think people kind of have this idea of, IT people, are introverts and don't like to speak to people. And that can be very true, but you also need to work on those interpersonal, those communication skills, because I can be a really good hacker, but if I can't communicate and I can't tell someone how to fix a vulnerability, then I'm not going to be very good at my job. I mean, I'm good
Hmm.
technically, but I'm not good holistically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something good to kind of touch on, is that even in those technical roles, you do sometimes need those soft skills. You do need to be able to talk to, different people, or people that aren't in, your department. You might have to explain to somebody from a different team at your company what is going on, and they might have zero technical background. And, being able to impart that knowledge to them, or make them at least understand sort of what is going on, is a huge plus for a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, there is that stereotype, just like the hacker is with the hoodie and dark, that everyone's kind of an introvert, and nobody likes to talk to anybody. But I mean, you go to one cybersecurity conference and you see it's almost the exact opposite. Everybody's super friendly and nice and going out of their way to help each other. So it's always nice, I think, when people kind of bring that up as something else to think about, or work on at least.
That's why I didn't wear my hacking hoodie today, because I mean, it's kind of a funny image, and you and I talked about this earlier, but before the show started, but because I didn't have my hacker hoodie on, but it's I think it's good to personify that hackers are just anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone. It's not, I hear hacking so much in the news media, and I'm like, you're using the term wrong. And I talk about this in my course as well, is that hacking, the term, the name, has gotten such a bad rap, and
Hmm.
hacking from its inception was never a negative thing. It was someone who's curious about technology, which I'm trying to turn that around in the organization I'm part of. We're trying to turn that around. Not to say that hoodies are not uncomfortable. I mean, I love
Yeah.
wearing hoodies
Yeah.
and all that, but you don't need to fit a certain evil, have your gloves on, have your hood on,
Yeah.
stereotype to be a hacker. Yeah, and anyone can be a hacker.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you talked about wanting to give back and kind of imparting knowledge. I mean, is that kind of what brought you to Cybrary? I see your Cybrary shirt. I'm not wearing mine. Shame on me. But is that kind of what made you want to work here and just kind of start creating courses?
Truth be told, I was contacted on LinkedIn about the opportunity. And, at first I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. I mean, I enjoyed teaching when I was in law enforcement. I enjoyed presenting. And, people talk about imposter syndrome and things like that. And I'm like, why does Cybrary want me to talk about, to make a hacking course? I mean, I love it. But am I the right guy? Am I the subject matter expert in this? And I'm a very hands-on guy. And I think that was like the OSCP mentality is where I went from there is I started to make labs. And I started to make labs for another organization. And I really enjoyed making these labs. And I'm like, I really enjoyed teaching people. And I kind of missed that aspect from my prior job of teaching people. So it's like, if I can mix those things together, if I can mix the lab making, the teaching people, and helping people, because I think being in law enforcement and taking personality tests, like I'm the guardian personality type. I genuinely want to help people, and it's funny, kind of in a way, teaching people how to hack things. You're giving people, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So you're giving people knowledge on how to break things, and you're hoping that they're doing things, legally and with good intentions. And I assume good of people, even though I worked in law enforcement for 14 years, seeing a lot of different types of people. But, if I can help, the greatest compliment to me when I was in law enforcement, especially when I was a street cop, is I did have the opportunity where people in a couple occasions came up to me and said, hey, you saved my life, which, it makes me take a step back and miss that. I'm not saving people's lives, but if I'm safeguarding my company, if I'm helping people safeguard theirs, then ultimately I'm contributing to that, that greater collective cybersecurity good. And I would hope that people who are taking courses at Cybrary and are involved in Cybrary have that same kind of objective in mind. I think we're all defenders. If you're in cybersecurity, even though if you're a red team, you are a defender in the end. You're helping people defend their networks. So it's having that drive to also be a defender, that public good, that public, looking out for people, that guardian nature helps you in this industry, or should be an impetus to get into this industry.
Yeah, I mean, kind of continuing to pay it forward. What you're talking about is just, you're just trying to kind of give back and help, and you understand. I mean, especially working in law enforcement and the dark web, I'm sure you've seen the terrible side of people, but just knowing that there are good people out there, and just trying to help the next generation get ready for the next thing that might be coming for in the industry, at least. What course do you currently have on Cybrary, or courses do you currently have on Cybrary?
So I have the offensive penetration testing course now, and I'll be coming out with more content later. I don't want to give too much away because we're still in the inception of it. Still creating. But that's to say that being in partnership, it's not just me creating offensive security type things. It's also working with the other subject matter experts and instructors, from the offensive side, to make more holistic courses, to bring into that. That bring into the blue team piece what the red team is thinking, and also for me to think about what the blue team is thinking. So that it's more, I know purple team is the concept now. I think of it as holistic security, but it's not just in the intel world we call it stovepiping. We want to get out of stovepiping. We want to be able to see things from as many angles as possible, and I think that's very important when creating a course, is to have different perspectives in there.
Yeah, and I mean, we're definitely, I know you've been talking with some of the other SMEs and Will, especially on some of the stuff we're looking to create. So definitely stay tuned, everybody. But can't really talk about it now. The things we can talk about, your offensive penetration testing course. Can you give me a little insight onto kind of what you go over, a little overview of that course?
Sure. So, I mean, it's really focused on the certifications that are more hands-on. So it's more geared towards OSCP. It's more geared towards maybe eLearn Securities, eCPPT. and maybe even EJPT, more of the, I need to hack into a network and write a report about it. So, I mean, the big thing being OSCP is that big hands-on test everyone thinks about. So I would say it's more geared towards that world, and kind of walks you through how to write a report, which is part of these exams, which is a very important part of the exam.
Yeah.
As well as of course the technical skills, right? How to scan a network, find vulnerabilities, enumerate different protocols, SMB, FTP, NFS, and all the different ports that they're on and things like that. So it's not really a memorization test course. It's really, really, really geared towards getting your hands on the keyboard, and that's in part of the course are these labs. So it's not just me speaking to you, which I think can get a little tiring, even hearing my own voice. But the other part of that being that that people get the opportunity to get their hands on keyboard and figure out what these concepts are and prove to themselves that they can do this, that they have these hands-on skills or have learned enough to do the hands-on skills. And if they have some struggles, I do full walkthroughs after these labs. But it's really being able to demonstrate these techniques that I'm trying to help people with. And I even say at the end, at the course, much to Cybrary's chagrin, is don't expect to pass OSCP just from taking this course, because we talked about this earlier. Part of the journey is failure. And
Mm-hmm.
if you take my course and pass OSCP on the first try, please let me know. I mean, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. But I think it's part of the journey of going for OSCP and these other hands-on tests. It is that failure piece, and then figuring out what you're weak in, and then keep exploring and keep trying harder. As OffSec says, try harder. I say try smarter, but it's I think a bit of both.
Yeah, and I think what you said is including those labs and stuff in your course, making sure that people are actually getting some practice on what you're teaching them, what you're going over. Because I mean, like you said, yeah, I mean the odds of you passing OSCP the first time by yourself probably aren't very good. But if you didn't have any of those labs and stuff, it's probably way less, close to zero. I would think, if you haven't practiced any of this stuff before and you're doing it for the first time for an exam, probably not the way you want to go about doing it. Um, is there anything that people should know before taking your course? Like, is any kind of prereq type things, like they should at least know how to do XYZ?
Yeah, I would say don't be like me when I took, registered for offensive security and had issues, connecting to the VPN environment. Definitely have. I talk a little bit about command line, but you definitely need to have strong command line skills, and that as a pen tester, the command line is what I live in a lot of the time, most of the day. So be comfortable with that. I think people might get frustrated if they're not familiar and they just jump in the course and they learn a few tricks with the command line. But really, I think the benefit that I had, and the training that I got initially was from the DoD. It was from the Defense Cyber Investigation Training Academy, DCITA, and they had very hands-on instruction, very hands-on courses, and that's what kind of got me more and more and more comfortable. So the more hands-on, whether it be labs, whether it be, whatever, I know Cybrary has lots of lab environments that you can do. The more hands-on labs, command line you can do before this course, the better. And I also talk about, network plus, security plus. Networking is very important too, because, right, you're on a network, hacking into a system on the network and scanning things on the network. So an idea of networking, not social networking, but networking. That's another course.
Having some of that base knowledge. Yeah, I don't think we have a social networking course. That might be something I could teach, actually.
There you go.
Yeah, bring it all back to LinkedIn. Boom.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's good that all kind of the hands-on stuff and making sure that people know that, and then having a base knowledge of like you said, network plus, security plus, just so you understand some of the concepts, and so you're not just kind of jumping into the deep end, as it were.
Kind of jump in the deep end.
Yeah, sometimes you do. sometimes it's fun in the deep end, but sometimes you also get over your head and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Uh,
Yes.
I
Happened to me.
definitely felt
Funny.
that way. Yeah. Yeah. Again, and like you mentioned a little earlier, imposter syndrome. It happens to everybody. If somebody tells you they don't get imposter syndrome, they're either lying or the most confident person on earth. Not a bad quality either, but I mean, everybody has kind of that feeling that you're in over your head or you don't know what you're doing yet. That's just part of life, I think. So don't let that detract you from doing something that you might really enjoy. Um, well, Clint, yeah, thanks for your time. I kind of wanted to ask, do you have any, you mentioned Twitter and LinkedIn. Do you have any other social accounts or social accounts you want to share that people might be able to reach out to you or ask questions if they take your course?
Sure. I mean, I've already had people reach out to me on LinkedIn, so apparently I'm easily findable on LinkedIn. Which LinkedIn's now my Facebook. I've converted from Facebook to LinkedIn,
Yeah.
so I would say LinkedIn's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I've tried to help out a few people. Actually, one person that had some questions, and I appreciate the people who have reached out with the compliments. I really enjoy hearing feedback. And that's to say, the course is always a work in progress. If people have suggestions on how to make it better, I'm all ears because I'm not an expert in anything. I like to think of myself more as a generalist in cybersecurity. So, and also teaching. That's a skill in of itself. Like I
Yeah.
said, could be a great pen tester, but if I want to be a teacher, if I want to help other people learn about it, that's another skill set that I definitely need to work on.
Mhm.
So I'm all ears if people want to hit me up on LinkedIn.
All right.
It's Clint Kehr. There's a Clinton Kehr, kind of looks like me, but is not me. So Clint, even though my full name's Clinton, I go by Clint.
Okay. That's a good distinction to make. I've definitely tried to look people up on LinkedIn before and not gotten the right person. It does happen. So,
Hopefully, Clinton Kehr appreciates that.
yeah. Well, he's like some architect or something. He's like, why are people asking me these cybersecurity questions? I
Right.
don't know. Well, all right, Clint. Thank you for your time again, and for teaching with us at Cybrary. I know your course is definitely really popular so far, and looking forward to all the other content that you're currently working on with us. So, thank you.
Thanks, Thor. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a good day.
Take care.